Hello, welcome to another episode of Going Green. I'm your host, Kathleen Harvey. Today's episode is on roses. Roses are beautiful flowers that many of us love to enjoy getting and receiving. With a little preparation and a lot of care, we can have those garden prima donnas in our very own yards. So, I'm going to start with a little history of roses. Many of the garden roses that we get are considered hybrid tea roses. They're the long stem roses that we get when we get them for Valentine's Day or to celebrate Mother's Day or just as a special friendship. Growing roses in your garden takes some special care. Roses, first of all, need to be given plenty of sun. We're in the shade here, but this rose that's in the background that we're going to be pruning today is in the sun from sun up until late in the afternoon. So first off, they need lots and lots of sun. Second of all, they need a constant source of moisture. But be careful when you're watering roses, don't water the leaves. Focus your garden hose on the bottom around what we call the drip line or around the roots. Many of us have seen those ugly black rings on the rose leaves. That's a fungus that's called black spot. So we don't like that. One of the easier ways to prevent it is by keeping water off of the leaves. It's also important to make sure that you have sufficient room around your roses for air to circulate so that the leaves will dry. So, first off, remember, lots of sun, lots of water, but only around the drip line. Keep your leaves dry and make sure that they have enough room to grow. Okay, next up, this rose has gone through its initial bloom and now it's ready to be pruned to encourage another flush of blooms. So, what do we need? First off, we need a set of gloves and a good set of pruners. Let's go get them and start pruning. The first thing you're going to need when you start pruning is a nice sharp pair of pruning shears. I would also recommend a good pair of gloves. These are leather gloves. I strongly urge you to get leather gloves because while roses are beautiful flowers, they have thorns. You don't want to get stuck, and material gloves can often cause you to get cut. So I'm going to put my long gloves on, and I have my sharp pruning shears, and I've also got a trash can handy that is separate for our green trash day to make sure that we recycle. Alright, first off, here is a bud that has finished blooming. You see it's all dried out, the top of the stem is dry, and it's ready to be pruned. Notice that the top few sets of leaves only have 3 leaves each. These are considered immature leaves. What you want to look for is the next set down that has a set of 5. So if you see here, this stem, once you cut down here, has a set of 5 leaves. So where you want to cut, if you want to encourage branching and additional bloom, is below the sets of 3 and anywhere near a set of 5. Now, I typically also check to see if there are additional branches further back. So do I just want to prune it here? Or if it's a little tall, do I maybe want to go back a little further? And in this case, I think I'm going to take this one back to encourage this branch to grow. So what we're going to do is this one, this branch, and this branch have all bloomed. So I'm going to take this stem right here. We're cutting on an angle, not flat, because you don't want the water to go in and encourage disease. You want the water to run off. And I'm going to cut right there. Here's another set of leaves. This one has been chewed a little bit. So here's a nice set of 5, nice strong set. I'm going to take it right here. And the remaining leaves are nice and healthy. So we continue to work our way through and prune our rose down to the next set of 5 leaves. Stopping in between to throw them in our green recycling trash can for recycling day so that we don't get hurt or drop them. It's also very important to remember, pick up any leaves, don't leave any leaves on the ground. Roses, because they are prone to getting fungus. If you leave the leaves on the ground, that will encourage the fungus to get into your soil, spread further, and get up into the root system, which we don't want. So it's important to pick up rose leaves, not so much other kinds of leaves, but rose leaves are very, very prone. Now, fortunately, these roses have very little fungus on them. There's a tiny little bit right there. So this one's not too bad, but if you have a rose bush, we've had a very wet spring, and if your roses are covered in that nasty black spot fungus, you especially don't want to leave those leaves on the ground. Okay, I'm going to toss these out. And now this rose will flush again. You'll get lots more flowers in another few weeks. If you remember to feed, that's one other thing that is very, very important to remember, is to feed your roses. Roses need a combination of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. And each one is good for something else. So think leaves, flowers, and roots. And your roses, for those of you who have teenagers, think hungry teenager. Roses are very, very heavy feeders. So you want to feed these every couple of weeks, but then you stop at Labor Day. If you continue to feed after Labor Day, what will happen is the rose will continue to grow, but the new growth won't have sufficient time to what we call harden off or mature before the first frost, and you'll just lose all that growth, and you'll weaken your whole plant for next spring. So feed heavily all spring, all summer, stop at Labor Day. One of the things to keep in mind as you're pruning is to watch out for some of the older stems. This is an example of an older stem. It's very thick. There's lots and lots of tiny little thorns on it. And if you look at it on the inside, once it's cut, you'll see there's a little bit of brown on the inside. That indicates that this is an old stem. The water and nutrients aren't flowing properly anymore, and it should come off. In favor of, if you look at this one that I pruned just to take the rose buds off, you'll see is green all the way through. This is a young, healthy stem, and it's going to encourage, by pruning it just where I needed it to, just a little bit, it encourages branching and additional flowers. Whereas if I left the old one on, it would continue to try to send water and nutrients through the plant, but you wouldn't get strong roses. So sometimes you have to have tough love. So that's why I took this whole stem off here, because it's an older one, in favor of some of the younger ones, which will now produce more roses for me in another 4 to 6 weeks. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Going Green. I'm Kathleen Harvey, your host. For future episodes, if you have any questions or like a topic that would be covered, please let me know. You can email me at plantartistry@comcast.net. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.